Hey, it's Clayton Olson, and this video is the 4 core beliefs of secure attachment. Now, what I'm attempting to do in this video is to bring to you the first principles of secure attachment, the irreducible truths that when you boil down secure attachment of showing up and being able to trust yourself, trust life, trust other people, what is at the heart of it? What are some of the declarations or the things that someone is making about life or about themselves that is allowing them to show up in the container of relationship, in the container of their life, interacting with other people, and to operate from a place where they're not trying to cling onto love, cling onto the connection, or trying to avoid it because they're afraid they're going to lose it. Those are typically the two polarities of moving into avoidance of something or moving into an anxiety around that connection leaving, or some type of combination of both. How do we find ourselves into and move into and create ourselves as securely attached, which I really believe is the holy grail of relationship and possibly the holy grail of showing up in life and being able to truly enjoy it, embrace risk, embrace uncertainty, and be willing to create connection from a place where we're not in this contracted state, worried about either being suffocated or the person leaving us. So I've got a couple principles that I've been playing with here, and I'm not a scientist, so there's probably some other ones out there that might be better than these, but I've really boiled it down to 4 that I believe are really powerful. And I'm going to talk about these, and I'm going to invite you into imagining how would your life change on multiple levels, whether that's personally, professionally, with your family, with your friends, just you out there in the world. How would your life change? How will it change when you start to adopt these as truth in your life? Now, if this is your first time on my channel, my name is Clayton Olson. I am a relationship coach and NLP master practitioner that helps people work on the deeper drivers inside of themselves behind their most painful experiences in life and relationships. And I help people rewire those so that they can start to secure a love that lasts and live a life that they love. So subscribe to the channel for more insights on that. And please feel free to comment on how this video is landing with you. I've also got a free guide that I created not too long ago, about the other month, that I want to give to you. It's called the Secure Relationship Blueprint. That link to that guide, it's about I think a 20-page document that will help you if you are anxiously attached. If you find yourself having anxiety in relationships, it will help you move more into secure attachment. And you can get that guide in the description below this video. I'll pin it in the comments as well. Take a look at it. All right, so moving into the first core principle, the first core belief of secure attachment is that you have a right to be here. You have a right to belong in this field of life. You are not an intruder, and you are inherently worthy. You're inherently worthy as a human being. Now, this is fascinating because this gets violated at a very young age. It can be, where perhaps there's something that happened to us when we were little, something that happened to mom when we were really little, where we've made a conclusion that it's not safe for us to be in our body on this planet. And so what can end up happening is we end up escaping out of our bodies, we stop feeling, and we go into our brains and start analyzing things. In relationship, it can look like a way in which we are disconnected from our worth. When we get triggered in relationship, we discount ourselves and we don't feel that we can speak up. We don't feel that we can draw boundaries. We don't feel that there's any real worth that we have inherently, that maybe all of the worth that we have is drawn from what we can do in a relationship or what we have in life rather than just who we are. And securely attached individuals, when they're operating in relationship, come from a place of knowing their inherent worth, which allows them to speak up and repair conflict. It allows them to draw boundaries. It allows them to get curious rather than feel threatened by perhaps accusations or if somebody else is becoming defensive. So coming back to this, you have a right to be here. You have a right to belong. You are not an intruder. And there is an inherent worthiness that you have deep down that cannot be taken away from you, regardless of what's happening in your circumstances, regardless of what's happening in your relationship. So what this enables, it enables accountability without collapse, boundaries without hostility, and receiving love without suspicion. Receiving love without suspicion. Think about that. Have there been times in your life where someone is loving you and you're suspicious of their motives? Maybe they're trying to take advantage of you because you're not in touch with your own core worth. And so you think they're after something you have or something you do for them. And so, if it's missing, the anxious pattern tries to earn love, and the avoidant pattern withholds to avoid being judged. So both erode secure bonding. All right, the first principle or core belief that someone has that can allow them to move into secure attachment, that is a foundational principle of secure attachment, is my emotions are not a threat, they are a signal. And I can feel what arises in my body fully, and then I can still choose the best response. Right? I can feel what's happening in my body fully, and then I can choose the best response. What happens when we see emotions as a threat is we try to avoid bad feelings inside of us. We try to avoid tension, we avoid discomfort, we avoid anger, we avoid feeling abandoned, feeling alone, and we then compensate for trying to avoid those feelings by doing things like people pleasing, by becoming overly compliant, perhaps by becoming more defiant, becoming angry, becoming controlling, not communicating authentically, not bringing our hearts to the table and talking about what we authentically desire in relationship. But when we can actually feel the emotions that come up within us and we can create space to experience these emotions and we can be with them and be in relationship with them rather than running from them or being scared of them, but noticing that they're not a threat, we can feel everything through and then we can choose the best response. That is emotional intelligence. That is becoming a master of your internal state. And securely attached people have the ability to notice these emotions coming up and they can be in relationship with them and then they can vulnerably talk about them in a way where they're not attacking, blaming, or defending themselves. And I'll say that every skill that we have in communication and relationship is downstream of this. Boundary setting, repair, it all depends on your ability to be in regulation with your own emotional experiences. So if you don't have this, you could have the best scripts in the world. You could have somebody that gives you the exact thing to say during a fight or the exact thing to handle crisis moments. But if you can't be with your own emotions, it's most likely going to come out sideways, be misinterpreted, because people are oftentimes in relationship more with who you are being when you're speaking with them, more so than the words themselves. So what this belief enables is it enables clean requests instead of protests in your relationships, presence from you and the other person instead of shutting down, and learning and actually growing through problems rather than looping in the same ones over and over again. Because when we can't be with our emotions and we see them as a threat, we get stuck in a cycle of avoiding ourselves, abandoning our bodies, and we start to just continually repeat the past over and over again in our connections with people. And the third principle of secure attachment is I remain a coherent self, both in space and in closeness. Think about that for a moment. What often happens when we are not securely attached, when we are not in a place of being fully connected with ourselves in relationship, is one of two things. We either abandon ourselves when we start to get too close to somebody and we forget our needs or we can't state our needs, and there's a way in which we are fearing enmeshment, so we have to push the other person away to be able to feel our bodies, feel ourselves. And we can do that in all sorts of different ways that are typically reactionary and not relational, not caring. Or the other is, and we start to feel the space in relationship, and you might be on the anxious polarity, and you start to abandon yourself then. Abandon your own worth, abandon your voice. You start to try to get your needs met in very circuitous ways, perhaps passive-aggressive ways. There might be ways in which you attack the other person because you feel that the space is a threat to the relationship. And you start to lose yourself. You start to lose the authentic value and nature of who you are rather than staying rooted in yourself. And so securely attached individuals and secure attachment, the move is to be able to come into a place where you can remain a coherent self, both in space and in closeness. You are not self-abandoning due to the proximity of the other person that you are in relationship with. So in this principle, coherence is your stance. You get to name a need, you get to name a boundary, a value that you have, and you get to remain congruent with who you are, whether this person stays in connection with you or pulls away. And what this actually enables is true intimacy that is born from inspiration rather than obligation, and also true autonomy in relationship, where you have space without punishment occurring in the relationship either. And if this core belief of self-coherence, regardless of the proximity, is missing, you end up having enmeshment followed by backlash. You end up having these pursuer distancing cycles where one person's moving away, the other person's chasing them, and then there's this push-pull dynamic, or you have this testing and punishment rather than an actual generative dialogue occurring between the both of you. And finally, the fourth core belief or first principle of secure attachment is you have a right to have needs in relationship, and so do they. You have a right to have needs, I have a right to have needs, and through communication we can negotiate those needs and see where we can get to and what we can create in relationship. Now, this is super important because if you don't believe that you have a right to have needs and you don't believe that other people have a right to have needs on a subconscious level, we end up not actually asking for what we want. We end up making assumptions. We end up trying to get our needs met in indirect ways that are often unclear, confusing, and can create resentment. We end up creating covert contracts with people, or there is a way in which maybe an avoidant, rather than being able to fully ask for space or be able to stay connected to themselves. Or if you're an avoidant, there's a way in which you might suppress those needs to a point where you end up having this severe backlash because you've been abandoning yourself, not asking for what you want, and then you end up having to walk away from the connection completely to come back into contact with yourself. So when you operate from a place of knowing that you have a right to have needs in a healthy relationship, in fact, it is a requirement to have needs in a healthy relationship, and it's a requirement for them to have needs to be in a healthy relationship with you, this is the foundation in which true interdependence can actually be born. Because both of you can come to the table, talk about your needs, be able to name your needs. And just because you name your needs doesn't mean you are entitled to get those met. Just because the needs are named and voiced does not mean that now they are entitled to be met. It means that they can be received by the other person. That person can decide whether or not they can actually meet those needs. And so this is the art of relationship, the art of interdependence. Is there are some things that I'm going to be able to depend on my partner for, ask for. There's some places they're going to be able to meet me, and there's some places where they may not be able to meet me. And then I can decide, okay, where can I get those needs met? Are those needs really that important? Are they really needs, or are they just desires or preferences? And this is the mastery of relationship. This is where when we can have these needs and we realize they're part of a relationship, it opens up much more transparent, direct communication to occur in the system itself. And there's more transparency, so both people really know what they're dealing with, and the two of you can create a shared reality where you're moving in the same direction. So if this core belief is missing about having needs, then what can happen in a dynamic is the anxious might end up over asking, meaning they're just suppressing their needs so much that all of a sudden when they finally do ask for it, it comes out as a demand, or they end up erasing their own needs and building resentment to keep the peace, or the avoidant is refusing needs to avoid actually being vulnerable in the relationship. And both end up producing resentment, scorekeeping in the relationship, and also a feeling of being trapped, a feeling of being trapped in a dynamic where there's no oxygen, where both people can't really be themselves and honor themselves. The relationship becomes a place where you think, oh, I've got to compromise who I really am in order to stay in this. And a lot of people stay single because of this belief at a deep level, whether they're aware of that or not. A lot of people are saying, the relationship, there's a belief around the relationship that it's like, I can't really be me fully in this relationship and have needs and get them met by that person or still meet my own needs if I'm in a relationship. So I've got to, in some ways, go scuba diving underwater without oxygen. And then eventually I have to come up for air, otherwise I'm going to suffocate. And that experience is typically predicated on this idea that I can't have needs in a relationship, or we really can't have individual needs when we come together. So those are the 4 core beliefs. Otherwise, we could call them the first principles of secure connection. 1, you belong here. You have a right to exist. Your worth is inherent. 2, you can feel fully what's happening in your body and you can choose an appropriate and constructive response. 3, you can remain a coherent self regardless of the distance and proximity between you and another person. And 4, you have a right to have needs and they have a right to have needs. And through that, you create interdependence. If you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to the channel, check out that guide, that secure relationship blueprint. And if you have been struck by this video today and you notice that some of the things that I've said have really illuminated some of the underlying structure that has been present in how you create relationships, because you felt like you've been caught in some type of loop, either single or with your partner currently, and you don't know how to get out of it. This is the work that I do. I've been doing it for 12 years with people. I do this deep inner work with people in a one-on-one setting and help you really rewire and repattern these core beliefs so that you can create love that lasts and experience freedom and power in your relationships. So I'm going to create a application link that will be in the description below if you'd like to have a conversation with me. I'd love to talk with you about what's going on and see if it's a fit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.